Juan Ayala. Welcome to the podcast, man.
Eric, thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Thank you for coming on. So you're an actor, and you have a podcast where you actually talk with other actors about their struggles and their experience working on a set. So what I'm wondering is, how did you move from what you are doing currently in acting, and now you have your own podcast? Why that transition?
So initially, I got into journalism sort of by accident.
Hmm.
Back in 2016, I think it was, or 2017. I was doing a play in my home state of Connecticut, and one of the producers of the play was is or at the time was the editor in chief of this outlet called Media Village, and he knew I was bilingual, and they were looking for someone to write Spanish reviews on Spanish language shows because none of their journalists spoke Spanish, so they can only do so much. Um, so I got started in that way, and then eventually, once I just wanted to sort of get into interviewing people more often as a journalist. And that was sort of a great sort of side job to support myself while I was living in New York, and I was working at a gym at the time as well, part time while auditioning and looking for sort of the next acting job. And it was just a way to support myself. So then once COVID hit, I had nothing but time on my hands, just like everyone else. We were sort of just stuck at
Right.
home, and
Right.
I had wanted to start a podcast before that. I had already sort of like made some podcast art and had asked a few people to do it, but I was so burned out that once COVID hit and I left New York for a little bit to spend time with my family in Connecticut instead of being in New York by myself. And New York was kind of very sort of scary at the time
Yeah.
with COVID and everything. So um, I decided to finally start the podcast, and I asked one of my best friends to be my first guest, and then just DM'd other actors who I had worked with before or who I maybe saw in a show that I was watching, and
Hmm.
just looked them up on IMDb, or I DM'd them on Instagram and was like, "Hey, I just started a podcast. I'd love to interview you about the show that just released or whatever." And it just sort of became another way for me to be creative and talk with other people about the industry, and also just sort of
Right.
check up on people because we were all going through the same struggle of like, we
Hmm.
can't audition because there's nothing to audition for. We can't go to an acting class. Everything was virtual. So it's like, how are you dealing with that? How are you staying creative? People developed a lot of new hobbies during COVID.
Hmm.
I started learning how to edit and podcast and all of that stuff, and
Yeah.
design social media posts to promote the show. And other people, took up a new sport. Some people started painting, learned a new instrument, learned a new language. So it was just a way for me to talk with other artists. And then
Hmm.
once production sort of started opening up again, once COVID started to subside a bit, then all these publicists who I had previously worked with were telling me about their clients, saying like, "Oh, I have this actor who's promoting a new movie or promoting a show," and then it just sort of was like a snowball effect. From there, this little passion project ended up
Yeah.
becoming a much bigger thing.
Yeah, that's what everyone that has a podcast hopes for, right? To start getting connections with other people that come from the podcast, and then just
Yeah.
build connections like that. And talking back with COVID, I think COVID changed acting permanently.
Oh, for sure.
There was a permanent change, and it's pretty crazy that we went from COVID to the actor strike to now AI, that is
Yeah.
just changing everything. Like, what are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, it's really, really affected the industry in so many ways. I had worked on this one show before COVID, and then during the pandemic, at like December 2020, I booked a show that was going to film after the holidays. It was going to film
Hmm.
in January, and just seeing how different sets were being run. The crews were much smaller because they needed
Hmm.
less people. Because especially if you're in a small studio where they're filming or something,
Yeah.
um, just physically how production was run was really, really, really different. And then um, productions got more expensive because they had to provide tests for all of their actors and their crew. And if someone tested positive, they had to shut down for 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks is a long time to shut down. Indie films usually film for 3 weeks. An episode of a show can take anywhere between, you know, 5 to 10 days to film. So you shut down for 2 weeks. That you're now an episode behind on your
Hmm.
schedule. And that costs a lot of money. So, they tried cutting costs where they could, smaller casts, smaller stories, less sort of big epic shows.
Hmm.
And then, right when things were starting to get back into a good pace, the strike happened, which I fully support. I'm
Hmm.
glad that we did go on strike. I'm glad that SAG, the Actors Union, SAG-AFTRA,
Hmm.
put their foot down when it comes to AI, especially looking now where AI is and
Yeah.
how much that's affecting production. Thank God that they didn't sort of sideswipe it in 2023 and think like, oh, AI is not a big deal. We'll worry about that later. Like, I'm so happy they worried about it before it became what it is now, because otherwise we'd probably have, AI movies by this
Right.
point, or people replacing, because, I see ads and commercials that are so clearly done with AI, either voiceover, so they're not
Hmm.
hiring voice actors anymore or announcers, or they're not hiring graphics designers, or just having someone plug in a prompt to an AI program and then using that picture for their ad. Like, it's changed so much in
Yeah.
such a small amount of time, literally like 2 years. It's crazy.
Yeah, because even when I worked in marketing, Canva was out,
Yeah.
and I remember even seeing ads made with Canva, and it was something that was talked about between marketers, that having someone design an ad with Canva and actually hiring an ad designer is worlds apart, because you're not going to get the same creativity. And we're seeing the same thing with
Right.
AI. The only thing is that AI is easier to access, and that's why more people are using AI, but they don't realize that there goes more into uh, creating stuff, and it's
Yeah.
that creative aspect that people don't really think about.
Yeah, it's mind you, I use Canva a lot for my
Mhm.
podcast art and all that stuff,
Yeah.
and for my job as well, for my day job as well, um, just designing like simple thumbnails and graphics and
Hmm.
things like that. But yeah, it's been really interesting seeing people just like kind of take a template and then put in their photo, and
Hmm.
just that's like the bare minimum
Hmm.
of what it is. And it's a little, it just feels kind of cheap. I'm like, really? You couldn't think a little bit creatively for
Hmm.
this? I try to, as much as I can, like really make up my own design so that they look unique and interesting and not just like formulaic. Because
Hmm.
sadly, that's what it comes down to a lot when you're using these templates. It
Hmm.
just looks sort of generic and like everything else.
Yeah. And I think there's always going to be a category for AI generated content, because now that we're getting more AI generated content, even through TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, with Sora now doing all these videos, I think the demand for AI content is there, but at the end of the day, it's going to be just a category, like a subcategory in a broader field of different categories. There's people are still going to want something that was created by humans, and it's always been a thing, because people
Yeah.
want handmade things rather than manufactured things. And that's
Yeah.
why you have, when it comes even to clothing, handmade clothing or tailored clothing is always going to be at a premium cost.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting seeing people's videos and whatnot on shorts or reels or anything, and you look at the comments, and people are getting smarter, and they can usually tell when it's AI,
Hmm.
and they'll be like, this, get this AI garbage out of here or whatever. And then
Hmm.
the opposite, when someone really puts in the work and the creativity, you see all these comments, people being like, oh my gosh, it's so nice to not hear the same of the five AI generated voices, like,
Hmm.
the voice of Roger, I forget his last name. He's the voice of Ghostface in the Scream films.
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, it's Roger or something,
Right.
I think. But you hear his voice. It sounds like it's Ghostface on the phone
Yeah, I do
under as the
recognize that
AI
voice.
voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an icon. Oh, Roger Jackson, that's his name.
Okay.
But it's it's an iconic voice, or there's just that like very sort of bubbly female voice. It's like,
Hmm.
you know, um, I can't improvise like a text right now. But it's like people are tired of hearing the same voices over and over. So when someone decides to do their own voiceover for their videos, they're like, "Oh my gosh, you have such a soothing voice. It's so nice to hear a real voice, a real person."
Hmm.
People miss that connection and that creativity from people. There's still a demand for it. While there may be a market for AI stuff, there's still very much a demand for that
Right.
human touch and connection.
Yeah, because I work with AI all the time, right?
Mhm.
And when I speak with people that don't understand when something was written by I basically tell them, I give them this example. Like if you text someone and they're your friend, you get to recognize their texting pattern. So
Yeah.
there's been cases because I've also watched a lot of like those true crime documentaries, and there's
Yeah.
been cases where they kill the person, then they grab their phone and they text like they're them, but you could tell, at least for forensic scientists could tell if this person was the one texting this message or not, because there's a text writing format that they use. It's the same thing
Yeah.
with AI. The more that you use it, the more that you start understanding if something was generated with AI or if it's not, if it's actually someone like a person, because AI uses a certain structure when it writes. And
Yeah.
it's that same structure all over and over again. And I think that's what's going to make people grow tired of just
Yeah.
AI content.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially on LinkedIn and whatnot. There's LinkedIn used to be so helpful and interesting, and now it's just people using ChatGPT to write some motivational business nonsense or whatever, and I can always tell when they put in a prompt to ChatGPT because they're using a bunch of random emojis throughout the post. And just the voice, there's no personal voice to it. It just sounds so generic. Like I said, AI pulls from all these different sources and just kind of puts them in a bag, shakes it up, and then, generates whatever it is that
Just
you're
spits it
asking for.
out.
And it sounds so generic. It's just seeing those posts, and it's just like, really, people have like resorted to this. They're just like a LinkedIn content creator. Like even LinkedIn has sort of been reduced to being uh, just uninspired, uncreative content. While it used to be like about business networking, and now it's not that at all.
Which
It's
is
completely
funny
changed.
because LinkedIn, at least to me, has always been robotic, has always been like this corporate robotic voice that people had or people have, saying something like, thank you for so and so company. I'm really grateful for being hired or for working for your company. Now I'm moving
Right.
on to new projects, and it's always the same structure already. That's
Yeah.
how it is. And it's funny
Yeah.
now with AI. I think people are just lazy.
Yeah.
Normally.
Yeah. It's funny seeing, because you'll if you add a new position to your resume on LinkedIn, it'll then say like, um, click here and we'll generate a post for you. And it's like you said, it's exactly that. It's like that very generic, grateful for my time here, and I'll be moving on to here. I'm so excited for the road ahead. And it's like, are people really that excited about their new job? That, if you are, good for you, but most people, a job is a job. It's, that's just me.
Right.
Maybe I'm a little cynical when it comes to that, but
But it's the
yeah,
truth
seeing
though.
how much AI and all of that sort of just like generic generated stuff has impacted all these different platforms. Um, it's not just like social media. It's now these like larger networking platforms that have been reduced to that, sadly.
I mean, it sucks seeing it, but AI is never going to have that human component as much as people think it will. Because at the end of the day, especially when it comes to acting, uh, I've seen commercials on YouTube that were done with AI, and they
Mhm.
look so like dull.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be a demand there for that. And also, so we were talking a little bit before the podcast how the media landscape is changing. And I read this thing the other day that Latin music, going away from, acting. I'm sure you have more knowledge of like the industry overall, and you keep up with like the industry no matter what it is, with in entertainment. So Latin music is selling, or more Latin audiences are buying more music than English speaking ones. So I see the media landscape changing overall, and now there's a growing demand for Latin art. I don't know if you've seen that, if you've noticed that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's one of, if not the biggest genre in the world right now. Artists like as we were talking about before the show, artists like Bad Bunny have just completely changed the game, and are dominating the charts when it comes to, they're selling out these like massive venues and hitting all these records and all of that. Like, especially when you compare him to an artist like Taylor Swift, who's been in the game for a very long time. Bad Bunny is somewhat relatively new in terms of
Right.
mainstream success. Taylor Swift's been around for over a decade. Yeah, it's just been really interesting to see the rise in popularity of Latin music and just Latin culture in general. People are more sort of open to watching these Spanish language shows on Netflix, and consuming our art, and they love our food and our cocktails and our music and all of that. So
Yeah.
it's really cool, honestly, because like I feel like growing up that wasn't so much. I feel like only Hispanic people knew artists like Selena, and then later sort of Shakira changed the game a little bit going into mainstream, and then yeah, I feel like Latin music was sort of its own sort of genre, or Spanish language music was sort of its own thing that never really crossed over as much, and then
Yeah.
slowly it has been over the last couple of years. So it's been really cool to see.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see that this could have been the case back in the 90s when Selena was going to be releasing a English language
Yeah.
album. And I mean, it's been 30 years in the making, but now with Bad Bunny collaborating with Drake, and then Drake collaborating with Chino Pecas, I think that's his name. We're really seeing a blend of different artists and different languages mixing together, and I think it's just great overall because now you're introducing more people to different forms of I wouldn't say entertainment, but different forms of like media, like different
Yeah.
cultures. It's what I wanted to say, and it's great. But now we also see the immense backlash that Bad Bunny has received over his halftime show performance.
Yeah. It's dumb. It's just like, guys, there are a lot of problems going on in the country right now. A 15 to 20 minute medley in the middle of a football game. It's not that serious. Like, everyone calm down. Every year someone has something to say about the halftime show artists. Some people don't like them. They're like, who, nobody asked for this, whatever. And now that because it happens to be an artist who almost exclusively makes Spanish music, if not
Right.
entirely exclusively makes Spanish language music, it's a problem. But it's like, but you all sing Despacito, and you all know who
Yeah.
Selena and Shakira are. When Shakira and J-Lo performed at the Super Bowl halftime show a few years ago, there was Spanish in it. Were people that upset? Maybe they were. They just weren't that vocal about it. But I feel like the biggest problem is how obsessed with social media we all are, and everyone, because people now have a platform to share their opinion. They're sharing their opinion on a constant basis, whether we want to hear it or not. And I think that that's kind of the main issue, is that like if we weren't as a if this happened 10 years ago, we wouldn't be hearing all of this sort of backlash about it, because it would sort of be relegated to people's actual conversations. versus seeing everyone's posts about it and their tweets and all of that stuff, and all these like
Hmm.
sort of political commentators talking about it on their podcasts or their radio shows or whatever. But
Right.
now we're all just so connected that we're constantly seeing everybody else's point of view and opinion and whatnot, that now we're holding way more weight. We're giving more value to that than we used to, which is kind of annoying
I
because
agree.
it's just noise.
Yeah, you're absolutely right that it's just noise, but I see all these comments, but at least give a legitimate reason. They say that we should have a U.S. Citizen perform. I've seen that.
Yeah, which is
For
like, you guys don't know Puerto Ricans have U.S. citizenship? Like,
I mean, first of all, The Weeknd performed, not a U.S. citizen. Paul McCartney, not a U.S.
oh yeah,
citizen.
we've had many artists who are not U.S. citizens perform, but they weren't, or they were singing in English, so that wasn't the problem. It's just it's really annoying when you see people's like, they're kind of just grasping at straws for an
Hmm.
excuse, because they'll say like, "Oh, he's not American" or whatever, or it's like, I forget who it was. I think it was Tommy Lauren, who's this political personality or whatever the hell job title she gives herself,
From the Beast, right? Or
something like
so
that. Yeah,
something, yeah.
yeah. Um, she was interviewing someone about it, and the person who was being interviewed was like, "I don't see the problem with it. He's a great American artist." And Tommy said, "Well, he's not American." And the person said, "He's from Puerto Rico. That's America, honey. Like, that's part of the country. Sure, it's not
Hmm.
a state, but it's part. It's a U.S. territory. It's part of the United States.
Yeah.
Um, you don't need a passport to travel from the U.S. to Puerto Rico, I think. Don't quote me on that. Now, as soon as I said it, I'm like, wait, is that true? But but they may not have voting rights in the United States, but they're still considered United States citizens. Um,
Yeah.
it's just and you bring up one thing like, oh, that's part of Puerto Rico. Okay, well, it's all in Spanish. Okay, so what? Like, it's just like, it's only a few minutes. Change the channel
Yeah.
if it's that much of a problem for you.
Yeah, I know. I've seen so much negativity now. Turning Point USA. I have nothing towards them because I was also part of Turning Point USA back when I was in college. Uh,
Mm.
but it's just like selective outrage that we're seeing.
Yeah,
And now Turning Point USA is going to have
like their own show or
their own
something.
halftime show.
So dumb. What a waste of money, but okay, whatever.
It,
People can do what they want with their money. Whatever.
Yeah, but it's just so much that is happening, and I just wish we could all just get along.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's all we want. It's just like, oh, why can't we just get along, or at least like tolerate each other? I'm not saying we all have to be best friends and hold hands and sing Kumbaya, but like, what happened to just tolerance?
Hmm.
Like, you go your way, I'll go mine. We all mind our own business. I live in New York. New Yorkers mind their own business. Like, it's that's what they're famous for, and it's what
Hmm.
I try to do as best I can. It's like, oh, someone's having an episode or whatever. Someone, the other day, this woman was having the train car, the subway car was full of like,
Right.
60, 70 people, if not more. And this woman sees someone who, is sort of gender non-conforming.
Hmm.
You can't necessarily tell if they're male or female or assigned female at birth, or and she started going on this rant about like trans people and gay people and all of that. And she's just like talking very, not really screaming at anybody, but she's just talking very loudly, and everyone's just like minding their own business, rolling their eyes, listening to this nonsense, and they're just like, please let her get off on the next stop. Like, it's just let people live, let people exist. Like, I don't
Hmm.
understand. Like, they talk about sort of like, um, what is that word that the conservatives love when it comes to oh, indoctrination.
Okay.
They
Yeah.
love that word. Oh my
Hmm.
God. You'd think that word was just invented, considering how often they use it. No one
Hmm.
used that word 2 years ago, and now it's like all that they say. But
Right.
they talk about like indoctrination, whatever. I grew up in a religious household. I was indoctrinated to join a religion. I had no option. I was told as a kid,
Hmm.
we're going to church, and you're gonna sit here and you're gonna listen to this and whatever. And I have a very complicated relationship with religion now as an adult.
Hmm.
or organized religion, not religion itself, but the church as a sort of
Hmm.
institution.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's just like you said, it's
It's
just why can't we all just get along? Why can't we all just like respect each other? And because so many people will say like, why don't you let people have a different opinion than you? And it's like,
hmm
well, why don't you guys act like you let us
hmm
do or say what we want when it's not harming anyone? But
hmm
it goes both ways. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You have to,
hmm
if you're gonna tell people you have to be tolerant, and there's a difference between like accepting something and being tolerant of it as well. I think people have to sort of realize that there's a nuance between those two. But
Yeah.
anyway, I'm rambling.
No, no, you're good. I mean, this is what a podcast is for,
Right. I
right?
tell my guests that all the time whenever they tell a really long story. They're like, sorry, that was really long. And I'm like, it's okay. I don't like 5-minute podcasts. So
Right.
we've
Yeah.
got half an hour. We got an hour, whatever it is. Um, Actors are so used to, having like 10 minutes with a journalist and they're doing like 10 journalists in a day on like their big press day.
Yeah.
So when they finally get half an hour for my show, I always tell them at the beginning, like, I welcome the ramble and the ranting and the
Right.
monologues and the speeches. By all means, tell me everything.
So, now that we've actually touched on that, with
Yeah.
people not getting along in the country, how is it in like in a movie set or in like a just a TV show set? Do people not get along as much as I hear that there's a lot of like high school drama type of, energy?
So the thing that we have to remember, and the thing that actors know and actors tend or try to remember, is that when you're on a set, you're at work.
Hmm.
You're getting paid to be there to do a job. You're hired to do the role. You're hired to say this dialogue and stand here in front of this camera and listen to this director. So when you start to let your ego get in the way
Hmm.
or your personal likes or dislikes of someone get in the way, it's just really, really unprofessional. And it's why you see actors in something and then you kind of never see them again because the truth broke out and was like, yeah, they're a nightmare to work with. They're so unprofessional. They waste
Hmm.
everybody's time. They show up late or they take forever in their trailer or they constantly need to go back and forth or whatever. And it's like, look, sets are not particularly busy. Like,
Hmm.
again, it takes for a 1 hour episode of a show like Law and Order, it
Hmm.
takes like 8 days to film 1 hour. And it's not even an hour, it's 42 minutes because it's an hour with commercials. So it's 42 minutes.
Right.
Um, or a show like Abbott Elementary, a half-hour comedy, which is really 22 minutes, and
Hmm.
then plus commercials. That takes like 5 days to film, I think, like maybe 4 to 6 days, around there. But it's like there's so much waiting and stuff that when actors like are letting their ego get in the way or someone's being a diva or whatever and they need all these breaks, it's like we are constantly sitting and waiting for them to move the camera and put up new lights and switch stuff.
Hmm.
So it's like when you need a break, it's like you're lying. You just want to sit next to somebody over there or whatever. I've been on sets where people get along. It's more fun off camera than it is on camera
Hmm.
because the group is so funny and so kind. They're all friends. They've all been working together for several years. Like when I worked on Blind Spot,
Hmm.
I worked on that show during the third, fourth, and fifth season. So by that time, the cast were all buddies and they're all like super friendly and
Hmm.
talking with each other and all of that. And if, one of the stars um, was not super chatty, but they would
Hmm.
just not be in that area. They sort of go off and do their own thing. And then when it's time to work, they're back to work. It's been good in terms of my experiences, but
Hmm.
I have heard stories of like people just get letting their unprofessionalism sort of it leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. It makes people not want to work with you again.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Because one thing I hear is that, especially for artists that just get too big, or I mean, actors that get too big, it starts to get to them and they start to become very like superficial and, like they get this thing, like this personality that they
Yeah.
just think they're uh, too good for others. Like, do you ever see that or have you ever heard of that happening?
I mean, I've heard of it happening for sure. Like people will say like, "Oh, my gosh, a few years ago they were like so humble and so kind, and now they don't talk to anyone, or they don't have." they'll have lunch in their trailer in their dressing room, and they don't have
Hmm.
lunch with us over here or whatever. But that seems so high school-y as well, as like if an actor's to complain like, oh, they don't sit with us anymore. It's like, okay, they don't want to sit with you. Grow up. You're an adult, aren't you? Like,
Hmm.
we don't. It's like with coworkers. There's always going to be a coworker that we don't get along with. There's going to be
Hmm.
someone who's like your work bestie, and then the one that just you for whatever reason you guys don't get along, or they rub you the
Hmm.
wrong way, or whatever. So it's like if you're an actor on a set, it's the same thing. You're not going to be best friends with everybody, and again, you're
Yeah.
there to work, and it's a contract job. It's short, especially if it's like a movie. You're gonna be working on this project for a couple of weeks, so we're gonna make this movie, and then we might never work together again.
Hmm.
TV is a little different. It's when you're like you could be doing season after season after season, but with um with film and whatnot, it's like, yeah, you just gotta remember you're here to do the job, and if people don't get along, that's whatever. And if again somebody wants to be a diva and act differently, okay, great, that's their business. And they're the ones
Hmm.
that change, not me. So
Yeah, because
if they want to
especially
change how they act, that's fine.
like especially when you're working on a TV show, because with a movie, how long does the movie usually take? Like a 3 hour to like 2 to 3 hour movie. How long does that usually take to film?
Honestly, it depends. It really does. It depends on the genre and how complicated it is to film. A Marvel movie takes like 4 to 6 months to film
Mm.
because there's so many. They have to like. There's like, okay, guys, today we're gonna work on this one tiny section of this action sequence where there's a big explosion. So we have to like set everything up. Guys, we only got one car to blow up, so we got to get this right.
Hmm.
They rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. So that's one thing. But like, horror movies are made super, it remains the most profitable genre
Hmm.
because, some popular horror movies recently will cost them $5 million to make and ends up making 100 million at the box office.
That's
And it took
crazy.
them and it took them 3 weeks to film because most horror movies are sort of majorly on one set,
Hmm.
like a house or a creepy cabin or a mental institution or something like that. So it's one set. Everything kind of just gets to stay there. You're not constantly moving sets and people have to travel and go over here and all that.
Hmm.
So it really depends. Indie films, especially. I auditioned for an indie film that has 3 weeks of filming.
Oh wow.
It's probably going to be a 90-minute movie, and it's 3 weeks set aside for filming because they are on a smaller budget. So they're like,
Hmm.
we can't do a dozen takes of this, guys. We got to do like 3 takes and move on. Like we gotta get this done.
Hmm.
Because an average day of filming is usually up to 10 pages of dialogue
Hmm.
or of a script because it's kind of like one page equals 1 hour of work generally.
Yeah.
Which is funny because one page of dialogue equals 1 minute of actual on-camera time. So
Right.
1 minute of footage can take an hour.
That's pretty
That's assuming
crazy.
they don't cut the scene or they don't
Yeah.
edit it out or anything. But uh, yeah, I think I answered your question at some point in there. How
No.
long does it take to film? Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess what I really wanted to relay that back to is that when you're filming a movie, you're only with them like from anywhere from like a month to just a couple months. But when you're
Yeah.
filming a TV show, you could be brought on for like the first season,
Nine
and
months out of the year.
yeah, like, so it's 8 months, right?
It depends. So if it's it depends how long the show is. If it's a show like Abbott Elementary
Mm-hmm.
or like Law and Order that films like 22 episodes a year or per season,
Mm-hmm.
they usually work for about 8 to 9 months
Oh,
out of
okay.
the year, and then they have a couple months off, a little break. Everyone goes on their vacations or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then they come back for the next season. Um, if it's a 13 episode show, and again, it depends on how complicated the show is. It can be anywhere from, you know, 4 months to 6 or 8 months. It really depends how
Mm-hmm.
sort of complex it is to film everything.
But then like you go on a break and then you come back and you're stuck with the same people. It could be anywhere, like same Modern Family lasted for like 9 seasons.
Yeah.
And by the end of that TV show, like you grow really close with your cast members, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It feels a bit like if you grow up in a small town, every year you have the same classmates, you
Mm-hmm.
know? if you're in a big school, it could be different people every year, but yeah, it depends. But like I said, the shows that I've worked on, Blind Spot in particular, ran for 5 seasons. They did the
Mhm.
final episode was episode 100, so they hit 100, and that was it. They ended the run and they did the finale, and that was it.
So is
But
that
they
in?
grew very close. Those people. Say again?
So is that enough for syndication? Like once you reach 100
Yes,
episodes?
100 is like the magic number for syndication. So that's why it was a 22 per it was 22 episode per season show,
Hmm.
which they did for 4 seasons, and then the final season was just 11 episodes, so that it can
Oh.
do the final season and hit 100. Because it's a very sort of complex in terms of like storytelling type of show. It's like
Hmm.
for the first couple seasons, each episode was based on like a tattoo on her body.
Hmm.
This woman who had amnesia, um, she has like these tattoos all over her body. The name of like an FBI agent was on her back, and all of this, and like each one is a clue to like a terrorist plot or something. It's very outlandish. It's sort of very sort of not very realistic. But because of that, it was sort of an action heavy show as well.
Yeah.
Um, these people are working together all hours of the day. I remember some days would be like a 14-hour shoot, if not longer, and then
Wow.
you're back at it the next day.
Yeah. At least that's what I hear. That you have these long days, long exhausting days on a set.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, like, do you have any other plans for the future? Are you just going to stick with podcasting for now, or do you plan to go back into acting? Because you did
I mean,
say,
I've technically never stopped acting. I've
okay.
never stopped pursuing it. I've always had an agent and a manager.
Hmm.
I audition frequently. Um, this is like my self-tape backdrop. That's my ring light. So
Oh,
it's like I always have this like setup
yeah.
up at all times and ready to go. Like this week alone, I had 3 auditions. One for one for a film, one for a show, and one I just got is for another film for 2 indie projects.
Hmm.
So I've never stopped. It's just sort of been a frequency thing. My busiest year, I think, was 2021. I had a different manager, and they were very well known in New
Hmm.
York, and there was a lot of production in New York at that time. It was before the strike,
Hmm.
and all of these shows and projects that were delayed because of COVID were now all filming at once.
Hmm.
So there was like 9 months that nothing was filming, or maybe 6 months that like nothing was really filming. So then once things opened back up and they came out with tests and vaccines and all of that stuff, um, all of these things were like, okay, now we got to go. We got to get into production. That's why same with the strike. The strike stopped things for 8 months, I think, total, and things that were delayed were now canceled because that actor has a contract with someone else, or they had to recast. Like the movie Weapons had a completely different cast at one point.
Yeah.
Um, I think Pedro Pascal was supposed to play Josh Brolin's role, but he was already committed to Fantastic Four
Hmm.
already, way ahead of time. So he was no longer available, so they had to recast. And it's funny that this year, it's like the last year or two, it's like, wow, Pedro Pascal's been in like 8 things, like 2 shows and 6 movies and all that stuff. It's like, well, yeah, but you got to remember, things were delayed. This movie was
Hmm.
supposed to come out a year ago, or this movie was supposed to be done 6 months ago, or whatever. So that's kind of why it seems like certain people are in everything.
Yeah.
But it's really because of all these delays from these different things that have happened in the industry. Um, but anyway, back to your question.
No.
Um, yeah, I do plan on continue acting. I've never
Yeah.
really planned on stopping or quitting because it's not something that takes up my time that
Hmm.
much, I do miss doing theater. I grew up doing theater. I got my degree in drama.
Yeah.
And that is something I do want to pursue a bit more since I'm in New York. But even Broadway is suffering. Broadway might be going on strike soon. The Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just it's one thing after another. It feels like
It
there's
never
no letting up
stops.
on all these like obstacles that are coming up, and against these huge parts of the industry. At one
Right.
point, there was the crew strike with IATSE several years ago, and then COVID happened, and then the writer strike and the actor strike, and now there might be another strike for the Actors Equity, which is the Broadway union,
Hmm.
or the theater union rather.
Right.
So
But
Yeah,
it's so expensive to put on a Broadway show, isn't it?
it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that, like, if you create a Broadway show, like, it needs to succeed, because if it doesn't, you're
Yeah.
just going to lose a lot of money. So there's a lot that goes into
Yeah,
that.
but that's what the investors who go into it and they're, investing their money, they know that. They know that it's a gamble. You might believe in the project, but it does not mean it's going to get great reviews. It
Hmm.
doesn't mean that audiences are going to take to it. Tourism is down in New York very
Hmm.
significantly, and the Broadway community's been suffering because of that. People are not traveling from Europe or other countries to the US as much
Uh-huh.
as they used to.
Yeah. So I live in Vegas,
Um,
so I'm seeing it as
mm,
well.
yeah,
And then we have our own shows out here. We have like Cirque du Soleil and all these shows
yeah,
on the Vegas Strip. So I'm also seeing that, because we're getting to a point that it's just cheaper to fly from the US to Europe than the other way around. So a
yeah,
lot of people are traveling there instead of, coming to the States.
yeah. Or people from Europe just go elsewhere in Europe. You know,
Hmm.
it's cheaper to take a train for a couple of hours from one European country to another, or a short flight, than to travel all the way here, especially the major cities here. Hotels are like $500 a night. It's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
I travel to Philadelphia quite a bit and to Chicago, as my partner lives in Chicago, and it's so much cheaper in these, like, slightly smaller cities, but like places like Los Angeles and New York are just insanely expensive. Not just
Hmm.
to live here, but to just visit. It's really expensive.
Yeah, because I've seen some hotel rooms here in Vegas go for like $1,000 a night. It's crazy. But do you see that impacting the industry much, besides, like the strikes?
Yeah. Oh, that
Like,
already has it. Way less things film in New York than they used to. Um, TV shows are either written to not take place here anymore, or they
mhm,
just use another city and pretend that they're in New York.
mhm.
Um, the show on CBS, called Matlock,
Yeah.
takes place in New York. I'm not entirely sure where they film. I think they filmed the pilot in Los Angeles, and now the show films in
Mhm,
Canada. But you have a city is a city. Every
mhm.
city, as long as you don't use like the big wide shot or you're in front of this iconic New York building,
Right.
every city street looks like it's buildings, it's glass and metal and cars. Like it all looks the same. So
Mhm.
it's like when they can pretend they're in a different time period. You just got to pick the right neighborhood in New York, and it'll look like or it's these older buildings and whatnot. But yeah, way less films in New York than it used to. Shows film in all over Europe now because it's cheaper.
Mhm.
It's cheaper to fly out your cast and house them there than to rent out a very expensive studio space in New York to film, or to film on location,
Mhm.
um, and whatnot. And even with Los Angeles, same thing. But and another thing that was a huge impact for the industry was the fires. The many fires we've had
Mhm.
in Los Angeles over the last few years have really set back production. They can't film outside anymore because the sky is orange and there's smoke and all of that stuff. Like
It's
it's crazy.
just
It's
crazy, and
yeah,
there's so many problems with the U.S. And I mean, it's even happened in the U.S. I know that The Walking Dead was filmed in Georgia because of their tax incentives. Like, Georgia is
yeah.
a really film friendly state. We had Breaking Bad was supposed to be in
New Mexico, I think.
so it was filmed in New Mexico, but it was supposed to be based out of not Irvine, but I think somewhere near San Bernardino. So it was
Okay.
supposed to be filmed in California, but they moved
Yeah.
production to New Mexico because it was cheaper to film there. And then I'm
Yeah.
from Santa Barbara, so there's also a show that was it's like this. I forgot what the name of it is. Like Monk. It's one of those like cop shows.
Oh, Monk.
So
Yeah.
uh, but I don't know if it was Monk, but it was
Okay.
one of those shows. It was like an old show, like from
Yeah.
2006. Um, so it was based in Santa Barbara, but it was filmed in Canada. So the entire
Yeah.
filming was done in Canada, even though like it
Yeah.
was So the location of it was Santa Barbara, and it happens.
Yeah, they do it all the time. It's just because it's cheaper to film and they're trying to save money. It's rare for things to film in California because it's convenient for the actors because a lot of the actors live in Los Angeles. But um, if they've got to go live somewhere else for 3 or 4 months to film something, they'll do it because it's they need the work.
And it happens.
Their lifestyles are expensive, so they got to keep up with
Yeah.
you know
But
all that.
well, it's been great having you on the podcast, and I really enjoyed our conversation. And I just hope that we stay in touch because it's crazy what's going on, and it just seems that there's so many new changes coming soon to just acting in the entertainment industry, and AI is going to have a huge impact, and it's not done yet at all.
Yeah, I don't. We're far from over. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. But yeah, Eric, thank you for having me on. Yeah, I love talking shop, and I'm usually the one asking the questions, so it's cool to be interviewed, for once.
Right. Wow.
But yeah, and to your listeners and whatnot, thank you for supporting Eric's show. Creators like us, we really depend on our audiences, so. Yeah, and you can check out my show, Actors with Issues. You can visit our website, actorswithissues.com. You can watch the show on YouTube or listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Actors with Issues, and we have our 250th episode coming out in December, and we're hoping for an exciting guest that I can't announce yet because it's not confirmed yet. But hopefully it's someone cool. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Hopefully it all works out for you.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.